Hey there, I am back with another Free the Pip Friday where we open up some of the rarest decks around, give you guys a chance to see what they're all about. And for this one, we're going all the way back to 2016 for what are arguably the best decks that Steve Minty has ever done with the original Anubis and Osiris. Now, these are not to be confused with the recent Shadow edition of these that were just successfully funded on Kickstarter in one of the most successful campaigns ever. These are the predecessors. Those are sort of recolors and remakes of these original decks, but these originals now are really hard to come by. They were funded in a successful Kickstarter campaign in 2016 and are chased by collectors everywhere now. So I'm really excited to break these open because, as you're going to see, the cards on these are just really fantastic and deserve to see the light of day. So let's get right into it. Now we're going to look at both of these Egyptian themed decks. They're named for two of the many Egyptian gods of the world. Anubis and Osiris were at different times in the mythology gods of the underworld, so they have a tie to them overall. But we'll look at both decks. Let's start out though with the black version, the Anubis deck. We'll save the best for last with Osiris. So put that one aside and let's get into Anubis. All right, so the cardstock is just this sort of dark black color to it, and it's covered with lots of gold foiling, some little accents that are in that super dark gray, kind of hard to read, and a very, very slight embossing all the way around that gives it just the really slightest amount of texture to it. Here on the front, in a mixture of the gold for Anubis and then dark gray for the rest of the letters, it says Luxury Goods, the Anubis Playing Cards. I do wish there had been a little bit more contrast with that gray. It definitely fades in depending on some of the light that you can hit it with, but that gold foil against the dark black is really, really impactful and impressive. You get some extra little framing and details, and it has little hits of Egyptian symbols. You have the winged scarab beetle here in the middle. That's a really common symbol that you'll see all over the place. And then down here, an eye and a pyramid. Pyramids obviously appear all over Egypt, and this eye, I believe, is a depiction of the Eye of Horus, a very common symbol for the Egyptians. But really nice ornate gold frame around finishing this out, and front to the tuck case that I really like. On the sides here, you have Anubis playing cards with the wings extending out to either side. Same thing on the other. The bottom here has your ad copy for Steve Minty. He does this on all of his decks. This copy down here is super small and hard to read, but it says, always minty, fresh, and made with love. Directs you to his website if you want to find more decks at steveminty.com. And at the bottom, it mentions that these are printed by Expert Playing Card Company out of Taiwan. Top has some more gold and gray detailing, mostly covered up by that tuck seal. And then the back has a foiled impression of the design that we're going to see on the back of the cards. We'll hold off on that for a second as we get into the deck itself and take a look here real quickly at the gold foil postage stamp style seal. It just features an A for Anubis in the middle of a diamond pip. So really nice feel to the tuck case overall. This one looks great on a shelf, and I gotta say, this is the second best of the two tuck cases, so great start. As you open up the flap, more gold detailing and patterns, and then the inner flaps here just have a slight embossed, I think it's a heart pip on one side, and then a spade pip on the other. So that's the deck. A little bit disappointingly, there's no interior printing. As ornate and detailed as the tuck case looks, I would have loved to have seen this with some interior printing, but just the white stock that you can see on the inside. But that's the tuck case. Big fan of it. I think it looks great. Just an elegant look to it overall. But let's look at the cards, and we'll start with the back design. Now, usually when you see a foiled version on the back of the tuck case, you'll see a flatter metallic ink or something like that version on the cards. This, however, lives up in every way to the back design that we saw on the tuck case, in that it uses a full stamped foil look to it overall, and it is absolutely fantastic. It's a black card, and then you get a nice large image here mirrored on the two-way back. Right in the center is that Eye of Horus and that diamond shape, and then you get an image of the goddess Isis. Isis was protector goddess of life and magic, one of the most significant goddesses in Egypt. I do think it was a little bit odd that it didn't feature Anubis in some way, but instead featured Isis. But it's a really fantastic design. I love how the wings just drape off to the side and just give a really nice shape overall to the back design of the cards. You get that whole series of gold framed in details, and then that dark gray again in the center. Once again, I'll say I do wish that that dark gray had been a little bit more contrasting color. It shows up nice and contrasting here on video, but I'll say you hit this in some lights and that really kind of fades into the black background. But all in all, I think this is a fantastic back design. That use of foil is one of, if not the best that I've seen on any deck. So really, really well done with that back design. All right, now into the deck. After seeing all that foil, the gold metallic ink that's used on the rest of the cards rather than the foil is gonna feel a little bit flatter, but I still really like the artwork that was done on these. So the two Jokers feature just a recolored version of each other. They're the same image otherwise, and they feature a trio of popular Egyptian symbols. The domestic cats here are a symbol of Bastet, the protector goddess of the sun and moon. That scarab that you see in the middle, that beetle, is a symbol of Khepri, the god of creation and rebirth. And then the Ankh symbol is kind of universal across a lot of the gods and goddesses, and it's a symbol of life that's associated with a lot of them. But a nice sort of symmetrical image of those three symbols, the wings that are kind of there to frame in the rest of it. I think it's really nicely done. So you get the one that's done here with mostly gold with little accents of red, and then a little bit flatter, shadowier version with the black cats instead and no red on it. They both say Joker, Joker in the corners, include those little bar elements that just sort of frame things in nicely. And all in all, it looks really nice against the dark black card back. So one thing I will call out on this, not about the design of the Jokers, but you may have caught it as it kind of flipped in the light. You'll see here some what look like little embossed elements almost on the card. What that is that's actually the foil stamping on the back that's pressing through to the front of the card. That's not uncommon with older foil designs where the foil stamping would come through to the face of the card. It's a little bit disappointing, but it's kind of a legacy of the older foil stamping technique. Nowadays, cards do a much better job of not having that impact, but you will see it on some of the older ones. For example, if you go look at the Regalia decks from Shin Lim, it has that same issue with the cards. So a little bit of a disappointment, but all in all, not too bad, and like I said, not uncommon. All right, so there's your two Jokers. You get the power ace of spades as well, kind of done in a monochromatic feel with just the gold metallic against that black card back. Definitely that gold really does stand out against that dark background, but you get the large spade pip in the middle. Again, that same image of Isis with her wings draped off to her sides. Really beautiful and sort of elegant look to that ace of spades. And then it says Anubis by Steve Minty at the bottom. And then you get a nice chunky ace pip or A index in the corner, custom spade pip with kind of a fan feel to it, and then those bars down the side to give it some extra framing. So very nice ace of spades. The other three aces are nearly as impressive. They feature those huge pips in the center. I really like those. Of course, the red ones add a hit of red, and then you get those ornate details in the center in that gold metallic. Lots of framing with the circle and then the larger frame and a slight shadowing. Again, kind of hard to see with the contrast, but you get those little line rays that give that sort of glowing feel to the pips in the middle. So there's your other three aces. As we go through the numbers, you'll see that all of them include that same styled pip and index in the corner with the bars framing, and they include gold custom pips in the middle. All of them feature that sort of fan-inspired design in the middle. I think it looks really nice, and you get a familiar but still custom layout to the pips. So nothing too out of the ordinary, but you do get some slight customization. As you get into the diamonds, you'll see the hits of red that really set off nicely against the black and then that gold. And then going to the clubs, go back to that sort of fan or shell feel to them overall. And finally, the hearts. So not bad on the pips, Nothing too special about these compared to the rest of the deck, but they're still really nicely done and fit in nicely with the rest of the design. And then we get into the quartz. This deck is all about the gods and goddesses of ancient Egypt, and so the quartz are of course going to feature those gods and goddesses quite heavily all the way throughout. Each one of the quartz is going to feature a two-way design with the pips in the center there, just kind of breaking it up in the middle. And they're going to feature one of the many gods and goddesses that featured in Egyptian mythology. The artwork on these is bold, I will say really, really nice. I would have loved to see this with some gold foil accents just to match with that ornate back design to the cards, but I really, really like the artwork on these. I think they're really well done. So we'll talk a little bit about these just so that you know who the gods and goddesses that are featured on these. Now, a lot of the gods and goddesses are going to be depicted as human characters with the heads of some sort of animal. That's not uncommon across a lot of Egyptian mythology. We start out with the Jack of Spades and take a look at Thoth here, who is the god of the moon, writing, mathematics, and magic. And you can see that writing implement in the human hand, and then the head of an ibis bird at the top. So there is Thoth, or Thoth. Not sure how you pronounce that. The next one is Mut, who is the mother goddess. Her name literally means mother, and she was the consort of Amun, who was the god of air. But this one I think looks a little bit flatter. I like the ones with a little bit more of the dark color that just sort of give it a little bit more of a depth feel. This one feels a little bit flatter with a lot more gold on it, but still kind of a delicate design when you get in there close, some of those finer lines. And then speaking of Amun, this is the god of air himself here, definitely more in a human form there with that pharaoh beard at the bottom. Turning to the diamonds, the card in the middle doesn't get any more red. You do get those little hits of the red with the pips in the corner, but the main god or goddess in the middle is still all in that sort of monochrome color. And with the Jack of Diamonds here, we get a falcon head on the god Horus. Horus was one of the most significant gods around. He was the god of kingship and the sky, often associated with a lot of the pharaohs. But I really like the pharaoh head here, the shape of the beak and everything. I think it's really well done. All right, Queen of Diamonds, we have Hathor, who is the goddess of love and beauty. And not something we associate with love and beauty today, but usually depicted as a cow. And so you see the cow's head there for Hathor. And then the last one for the diamonds is Ra. This may be the god that most people today think of when they think of the Egyptian gods, but Ra was the god of the sun, order, kings, and the sky, one of the most powerful of the gods, and here is depicted as a falcon, just like Horus was, but you have the falcon head and then this beautiful sun disk and cobra mounted on its head. So that's one that I really like. I love the shape of the headdress, the falcon head. I think this one's just a really good one. All right, now into the clubs, and we start with this one here. This is Geb, I believe it's pronounced, G-E-B. Geb was the god of earth and the father of snakes. And according to mythology, his laughter actually caused the earthquakes. It doesn't really look much like he's laughing there. This one definitely looks reminiscent of like the sarcophagus that you would see that a pharaoh might be buried in. That's kind of what this one makes me think of. All right, the Queen of Clubs. This is a really cool one. This lioness goddess. This is Sekhmet, who is a warrior goddess and a goddess of healing. Depicted here with that lioness head and that beautiful curved sword in her hand. This is probably my favorite of the entire bunch. And then last but not least of the clubs, this is Anubis. So the namesake of the deck is featured on the King of Clubs. Anubis was the god of the dead and usually depicted as a jackal. So you see the jackal's head there. Really like that one. All right, now we're on to the hearts, and we'll start out with the Jack of Hearts with Khnum. Khnum was the god of fertility, usually associated with water, and like here, was depicted with a ram's head. So you see those beautiful curling ram's horns. Queen of Hearts, this is Isis, who is, I believe, the same one featured on the back design of the cards. But Isis was a winged goddess, goddess of life and magic, was considered a protector, and was one of Egypt's greatest goddesses. And last of them all, the King of Hearts. This is Osiris, the god of agriculture and the dead. In later mythologies, rather than Anubis being depicted as the lord of the underworld, it was instead Osiris in later mythology that was depicted in that way. And so both of them at various points in history kind of served as the lord of the underworld. But this one's definitely more of a human form. And that is the deck. Now that's only one of the two decks, so let's get a quick look at Osiris, because I think on design this one is a lot better. As good as Anubis was, the blues on Osiris really pop. You get multiple colors of blue with that darker blue background and then the teal accents. And remember where I was complaining that the dark gray here didn't quite pop as much? Well, on this one, you don't have that problem. That blue on blue looks outstanding. The gold still really pops against that darker background. A lot of the same design overall. Obviously, it says Osiris instead of Anubis, both on the front and on the sides. But that blue just helps bring everything a lot more to life. And that continues on the back of the deck too. Multiple shades of blue that really just give this one a lot more depth compared to the other. Same style tuck seal here, obviously an O for Osiris instead of the A, and more detailing on the inner flaps. So beautiful, unique color to the tuck case, but it doesn't stop there. The cards themselves are also an equally impressive blue that looks absolutely outstanding. The back design pops so much more. Looks, they both look great, but the blue of Osiris looks absolutely astounding. And you'll see the slight difference in the overall design, whereas here the wings are draped off to the side on Anubis. On Osiris, they have this beautiful circular shape as they're arced up in the air. Everything about Osiris, as much as I was gushing about Anubis, I like pretty much everything about this one better. That blue color for the cards, by the way, so unique. I cannot think of another deck that has that color for the cards themselves. I think it really looks great. Like I said, multiple colors of blue in here, lots of depth, and overall just fantastic. And again, that beautiful use of that gold foil. The cards themselves all feature the same designs, but again with a complete change in the color. And where that gray didn't, struggle to pop out on the cards, the blue here really is standout. So I love how these look. The card color is just such a unique feel, and yet it still retains that ability of everything to sort of pop out with the lighter colors against the dark. You get a lot more color in the court cards as well, whereas on Anubis they were sort of monochrome colors on these. These have a mixture of not just that gold, but blue and even a little bit of red in here to give you just some extra little pop on all of the court cards. So there's some nice little blue accents on the black cards. As you go through the rest of the court cards, get a really quick flip here just so you can see those pops of color. So the black cards don't include the red accents, but do still have some of those blue accents. And then real quick here to the hearts. So there's your next look at those court cards. And finally finishing out with these spade courts. So really nicely done overall. And there's your ace of spades with the redesign with the wings up this time instead of draped to the side. So superior deck in every way, but both decks truly impressive and worth having in the collection. Now, as far as handling on these, I was a little bit suspicious of the handling just because you get that stamped foil design. If you feel like Metalux decks from USPCC today, they always clump a little bit. These fan really beautifully. So I think Expert did a great job with the foiling on these while still maintaining some nice handling. It's definitely a little bit stiffer of a stock than maybe what you're used to with some crushed stocks or some of those soft Cardamundi stocks. A little bit stiffer, but still shuffles beautifully, fans really nicely, cuts beautifully. So no real complaints on that front. Really impressive, especially considering how aggressive the foil stamping was on this one. So all in all, what's the uses of the deck? Well, if you opened it up, I think it'd be a great deck for gameplay. I really doubt people are going to use it for that. This is really going to sit for most people as an art deck and a collector's deck. Let's not kid ourselves. At the prices these things are going for, these are going up over $100 per deck. People are going to use these mostly to sit and look pretty on a shelf. And I can't really blame them. But for me, I'm incredibly happy to be able to free the pip on these and share some of the details with you guys. And if you have these decks, I recommend opening them up for yourself. They are worth a look. Even if you don't go use these for your next poker game, just getting a chance to appreciate those cards and the artwork on them, for me, worth every bit of it. So anyway, that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed today's Free the Pip Friday. I really enjoyed getting a chance to check them out. Hope you liked it too. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe for more deck reviews and unboxings. Let me know what else you want to see, and I'll see you for the next one.